All right, well, this week we begin with Vayikra, chapter 7, verse 12. That is also known as Leviticus. If we were to translate it very, very, very literally into English, it would say, if upon thanks he bring upon sacrifice the thanks challah, which of course is your perforated bread, your cake. Goes on to say, unleavened bread mingled in oil, and wafers, unleavened bread anointed in oil, and fine flour from mixing cakes mingled in oil. Feels like I said this last week, but it must have been like this. So our first word, of course, is the Hebrew word im, which is used in a lot of different ways, but generally it's the word if. And then the next word is al. That's not like the English word all. It's the Hebrew word all, which means on top of, upon. So if upon, it makes sense later. Todah, Todah, Todah Rabah. It's Todah. Thanks. The thanks offering, Thanksgiving offering, as it's most often said in English, but it's just an offering that we thankful. Then it says Yake Orivenu, or Yak Orivenu, which is literally means he bring it. It's to approach, to come near, using it of time, especially God has said to draw near when he aids the afflicted. You guys know, you've heard this, right? So you're bringing something near to where the offering is. Reeve or vehik reeve. There's two ways to say it. The first way I'm saying it would sound bizarre to an Israeli Jew, right? Because I'm saying it the way it would have been said 3,000 years ago, and they say it the way you say it now. Is one right and one wrong? Not really. Is one God's way and the other one no, it don't work that way. It's just dialects change. The way we pronounce words change over time. Even the words we use change over time. That's what's happening. It's no big deal. Anyway, so this is and bring. So we've got so now we have the same word being used twice. It's the of bringing. And so the bringing the thank offering, and this is and bringing al, which is the word upon, zevach, and bring upon the zevach, the sacrifice. It's the actual word for the slaying of an animal for this. Or if you're not slaying an animal, it doesn't have to be that. This is the word for slaying an animal, but sacrifices are not always bloody, as they're called. In other words, an animal is not killed. So it's of the bringing of a sacrifice, but this is the word used in conjunction with the actual slaying of the animal. Ha Torah, so that's the thanks. So the sacrifice, they're slaying something for this thank offering. And then it says halot. If they're bringing the halot with it, it's saying upon. So what you're bringing is a hamburger. You have the challah, and then you have the meat, and then you have the now we know hamburgers. Anyway, you know what challah is, right? That's perforated bread. Don't really do that with challah anymore. I mean, I know some people that do. They think it's real important. But most of the time when I get challah, there's no perforation there. And this challah tends to have the stuff that makes it puff up, yeast. And when you're talking about something perforated, we think of crackers, right? Because it has the little polka dot holes in it, you know? Anyway. So this word challah, the word itself means perforated. So kind of odd that we're using the same word, unless that's just a different spelling. I doubt it seriously. It is written in the feminine plural, so there's going first we say, okay, so you got the challah sewed on the top. See, you got your hamburger. Or maybe it's the other way. The challah would be on the bottom and the matzo, the matzo would be on the bottom and the challah on the top. Yeah, because that would be the big bun on the top. Oh my gosh. Anyway, then it says be lotot. That's the mixing, and so you're mixing the oils. Do you remember that from I think last week? I'm not even sure, but I think it was last week. Ba shemen, the oil. So if you're mixing it in the oil, the b sound on the front of that word makes it in or with. Mixing it with oil or mixing it in oil. You can say either way, right? It works any way you look at it. Then we have and wafer. So which has the leaven, and then you have the matzot, which does not, and then now it's using the word for wafer, urekike or u. No, I was just trying to look at some other way to say it because modern they always slam things together, but I don't think you can do that because biblical doesn't have the sound, as it were, not at least when the syllables are split like this. So it's kike, and that's your word for wafers. This says it's a thin cake, it's a wafer. What the difference between a wafer and a cracker is, I don't know. You have to ask someone that knows how to cook. If I'm cooking, you're getting peanut butter and jelly. That is a masterpiece of cooking in the kitchen. As close as I get. So then we have, after the wafers, we have matzot again. Trust me, I'll pull this all together in a minute. Then you have meshuchim, and that's from the same word we get Mashiach. It's the same root, anointing, because the Mashiach is anointed, right? So it's the same word. It's also, by the way, where we get the word Moshe. I know everybody says that, oh, it's of, what's that language? The Egyptian origin, and it means to be drawn out. No. You know where that nonsense comes from? It comes from that time period where the Jews were so worried that people were going to say, see, Moses was the first Messiah and Jesus was the second Messiah, that we had to make nonsense up. Moshe comes from the same root, and because he was the Messiah. Was he the Messiah that would come and deliver the covenant to the people? Well, what did he do? Yes, he was. He was the first one, and he was of human, earthly origin, and that one didn't work out so well. So God has to, this whole idea of the Messiah as we think of him. Well, he probably had to be of heavenly origin, if you know what I'm saying. Did this Isaiah chapter 2. If you don't believe me, it did not work out real well for us. Anyway, we're talking about the anointing. That's the mixing of the oil with this stuff. So you are either mixing what do you call it when you mix it all together? It becomes like a batter, right? You're either mixing it all together like that in the bowl, or you're maybe pouring it on top of your batter. It's the same thing biblically. There's no difference here. Or maybe you dip a brush in it and brush it across the top. They could have done that. They had the hyssop to do that. Make it like a paintbrush type thing with. Although I think that would be weird. But maybe they did. I don't know. I really don't know. The Bible doesn't say, so there's no one that can actually say definitively. I mean, archaeology could probably give a pretty good argument either way, but they could still not be definitive. Unless, of course, we do find something that dipped in oil and used for painting it on. I mean, if they find that, then it's definitive, right? But I've never read about it, so that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. But as much as I spend time looking at these things, you would think I would know if it was there, but maybe not. Anyway, I'm not all that in a bag of chips. I'm just the grease left over in the bag. So then we have bashaman. So it's in or with the oil again. So now we're going to finally say, what are we mixing the oil with? Well, it says besolet. That's fine flour. Then it says from the mingling of what? The halot. That's the challah. Belotot. There's mingling again. Bashaman in oil. Wow. That's something's going on here, right? So what it says, if someone brings a thank offering, or maybe we say thanksgiving offering, it doesn't make any difference. Just call it a thank offering because that's all they're really saying. They're not saying thank, because to step with the American Thanksgiving, I don't want to go there. But if someone brings a thank offering with the thank offering, he will bring halot. So you see what was happening? If you're going to bring a thank offering, you not just the meat, just you bring the meat and you bring the bread. So if all you have is the meat, you need to call it some other kind of offering, like maybe a meat offering. I'm just saying. But if you're bringing a thank offering, you're bringing more than one. You hearing me? Because that's plural. You bring the halot, and then it says also you're bringing unleavened bread that's mingled in oil, and unleavened wafers that are anointed with oil, cakes mixed with fine flour and mingled with oil. So as crazy as that sounded, are you seeing what's happening here? So if you're bringing a true thank offering, you're wasting your life. No. Oh, no. Oh, no, I'm in the right place. I thought my computer just did something. I thought I was in the wrong place. Anyway, so if what you're bringing is a thank offering, with that thank offering, you're bringing challah bread. And does it have to be several challah breads because it's in plural? Well, no, there's several breads here, right? You have the challah, you have the unleavened bread, and you have the wafers. So it tells you exactly what's what here if you look at it carefully. The unleavened wafers are to be anointed with oil. So those should probably be painted over with the oil. The cakes are mixed with the fine flour like a batter, right? And they're mingled, it says, with oil. And then the challah, let's see, you bring the challah. So thanks offering with the thank offering will bring. So the challah doesn't have that, right? So the challah is just your regular challah bread, and you're not, now I don't know if does challah, is that made with oil? Can you make it without oil? Because it's not telling you to bring oil to it.
I don't think so. You'd have to have something because it rises. It'd have to have some kind of oil or lard or something. I don't know. I've never made it. I have the recipe, but I've never made it.
Oh, here's what is possible. You bring the challah and the unleavened bread mingled with the oil. And the unleavened wafers are anointed with oil. That makes more sense, doesn't it? So, yeah, because if you're bringing bread, you're going to have to mix that with oil, aren't you? Yeah, so that makes more sense. I knew I'd done something wrong here, but I wasn't sure what it was. Although the translation is right, I'm just not following it properly until I walked my way through that. Of the word with, th, with, Onkelos and Drauzine, Onkelos by Drauzine and Wagner wrote this. They said this. Other commentators argued that the word all, the word that means upon or on, in this verse should be understood as with. But Nachmanides insists that it should be translated literally because the unleavened cakes, wafers, and bread were stacked on the sacrifice, which is really dumb. Because see, not mine as a sandwich. That's literally what's been said here. He's like, no, you stack it all together. That's why it says upon, it says upon, it says upon. And the other guys are like, no, it must mean with. Okay, what's happening here? What's happening here is the disagreement is coming because they are trying to understand Hebrew in their language, which was Aramaic or perhaps Arabic. I'd have to think that one through. Haskani, Saadia, and even Ezra. I would think it's Aramaic. I think Maimonides was the one, for sure Maimonides was Arabic, but I think these guys were Aramaic, and that is two different things. Very different things. They're both Shemitic languages, but they are two different languages. So anyway, what they're doing is trying to understand something in their language rather than divorce themselves from that language and learn it and understand it in the original language. So what does that do to us? It gets us confused, right? So again, this is Hebrew. It's biblical Hebrew. Biblical Hebrew is an idiomatic language. It is not a language filled with idiom. It is an idiomatic language. And this is something that has just been utterly lost over time, even among the Jews of today, because everything that Judaism does, whether you're religious or not, everything is just as literal today in Israel as it is and among the Jews as it is anywhere else. We have been so completely and utterly Hellenized that even when we speak the Hebrew language, we no longer recognize that the biblical language was idiomatic, which means, does that mean that there was no boat and there was no water? No. Just because it's idiomatic doesn't mean that there is no literal meaning in it. But the truth is, there's very little. And so what am I saying? Everything's all spiritual and secretive. No. We have a trace of this in English, and it's the thing I like to say. I stole it from, I want to say Tim Allen. It's the wrong Allen. What's the Allen guy that does the happy wife, happy life?
Oh, Jeff Allen.
Jeff Allen. I knew I was getting the wrong Allen there. I stole it from him. But anyway, I tweaked it a little, but I stole it from him. So you got this couple, they walk in to, could be anywhere in the house, let's say the living room, right there at the foot of the couch or at the foot of that man's favorite easy chair. There's a pair of socks laying on the floor. And the wife says to the man, "Are those your socks?" That's idiomatic because that wife knows those socks belong to that man. She knows that man took those socks off and just tossed them in the floor. And what she's really saying, because this is idiomatic, is pick those up and put them where they go, in the hamper. They don't go there on the floor. Pick them up. That's what she's saying, right? But what did she really say? What did she literally say? What she literally said is, "Are those your socks?" And what's happening here with translations and with understanding the Bible is, instead of us realizing that the woman is simply telling him to pick the socks up and put them where they belong, we're writing 300-page dissertations about how you can never trust a woman because she gets so confused about who she's with from one day to the next that she forgets her lover left those socks on the floor, and she has to ask the husband, "Are those yours or are those the lover's?" Right? I mean, because if you start taking this stuff literally, now this woman can't remember if those are her lover's socks or if they're her husband's socks, right? Because that's what literal does. That cats and dogs fall from the sky. That's an idiom. We say it's raining cats and dogs. And I experienced this on a very, human level. I'm not sure how to say it, because I said that in front of some people from India who worked for me once. And I don't know how many of them, several of them immediately went, their eyes got huge, and a couple of them took off running to the door because they wanted to see the cats and the dogs falling out of the sky. Well, that's what Bible translation is. That's what an English Bible is. It's believing that cats and dogs fall out of the sky because we don't recognize any longer, even the Jewish people don't any longer recognize the idiomatic dialect of Hebrew in which our Bible was written. So, yeah, there's literal stuff. Was there a flood? Of course there was. Did fireballs come out of the sky and consume those two cities? Well, probably. But the truth is, we don't know for sure. For one thing, Sodom and Gomorrah have never actually been found. People have made that claim a number of times, but no one's ever been definitively able to prove its existence. They all talk to the camera and put their little shows on YouTube and History Channel and everywhere else saying that, oh, this is absolutely the original Sodom and Gomorrah. No, just because they say it definitively on a television or because they write it definitively in their book does not make it definitive. And shame on people who do that. They should, especially the History Channel. Most of what they teach is not history. It's made up garbage. But, you know, entertainment sells, I suppose. So anyway, getting into whether this should be translated as with or whether it should be translated as all, it has to be all, as Nachman said, because, oh, well, because you got to stack it. Did people stack it? Well, who knows? Maybe they did. I mean, when you go grab a bunch of bread and a bunch of meat and stuff like that, and you're holding it in your hand, maybe you do stack it. I would think that happened. Did everybody have to do it? No. That's the law. The law doesn't say anything about stacking it. And just because the word all is used does not mean that it was stacked. And it doesn't mean that we now change this word to say something else or mean something else, like Haskani and Saadia, those two guys were trying to do. No, we don't do that. So anyway, let's stick with the translation that I gave you. It's pretty much on the mark. You know what I'm saying? Which one did I use? If someone brings a thank offering, with a thank offering, he will bring hallowed, unleavened bread. What?
With.
With. I used with. Yeah, because there was a bait. That's why I did it. Because that's what the Hebrew actually says, and that's what it means. All right, Colin DeLuch said about verses 13 was this sacrificial gift the offerer was to present upon. I would think it should say that the offerer was to present upon, or along with, either upon or along with, see, they're confused about it, of leavened bread. Round leavened bread cakes, they're saying, is the leavened bread. And to offer, and they have in squiggly letters, thereof one out of the whole oblation. Okay, so they're saying that three kinds are mentioned in verse 12. A heave offering for Yahweh, which was to fall to the priest who sprinkled the blood on the peace offering. Then according to 2:9, an askara of the unleavened pastry was burned upon the altar, although this is not specially mentioned here. Okay, so they're starting to mix and match things. I don't care what they have to say. We're not going to do that. Let's go on to verse 13. I do have time, right? I feel like I've wasted the whole day. Sorry about that. Very literally, it says, upon cakes, bread, leaven, he bring, offering he. Upon sacrifice, thanks, peace his. So now you got to bring bread to put on top of your bread. This is a hoagie, right? Is that what you call that? Or no, that's... I don't. Dagwood. It's a Dagwood. It's getting to be a Dagwood, people. All right, so we have to start off with the word all, which means on top of or upon. So now we got to stack halot, the cakes, lehem, and I'm being sarcastic here. No, we don't. Upon cakes, lechem, upon the cakes of bread. Chametz, the leaven, yakariv, which he brings. Carbano, that's your word for offering. And this is the word that anything. Your offering can be money, it can be time, it can be something that you made with your hands. Every so often, somebody will make something with their hands and give it as an offering. We've got some really nice stuff that way. We used to have this guy, LJ, used to work with wood, and he'd carve out these little things, and sometimes there were verses out of those. Sometimes, like one of them that he gave us personally was an old shack in the mountains. Boy, that one was really pretty. We had that hanging on our wall. So yeah, there's all kinds of offerings, and you either bring them to God, or you can bring your offering directly to your rabbi, or to, if you have a priest, to your priest. Uh, uh, these offerings, although they're saying that they're for God, part of this offering does in fact go to the uh, person who officiates for you. In our day and age, that's your rabbi. In their time, it was a priest.
Mention in Sukkot that they made us zitzion.
Oh, and this past Sukkot, we had, I don't remember who all did it. Seemed like there was 2 or 3 people at the table, but we for sure, Daryl Lee was there. He made us some. Daryl and Rich. Well, you can't see him, but I've got sort of. I've got the ZZO there that it was Daryl who made that, right? That made the ones that I've got on. Anyway, I don't want to give credit to the wrong person, but I think I remember it being Daryl who made the ones that I have on. Very pretty ones. By the way, I could use a couple more pair. Just saying. I have lots of clothing. All right, so then we have zevah, sacrifice, and this is the word that is generally used of the actual slaying of an animal, the flesh that's, the slaying of the flesh itself. And then you have todats, there's your thanks, and then shelamai. So there, now it's talking about 2 different types of offering: the thank offering and the peace offering. These are 2 different things, right? So our translation is pretty straightforward. In addition to the cakes, so we have this off, whatever that is. In addition to that, you're bringing the cakes, the 3 kinds of cakes. And then it says, in addition to the cakes, he will bring an offering of leavened bread for the sacrifice of thanks and for his peace offerings. So, in other words, the 2 offerings are, if you recall, they're done exactly alike. So, if the one requires the 3 types of bread with it, so does the other. So it's a summation, if you will, of what we learned last week. Pretty. All right. So then, verse 14. Very literally, and bring from us one from all, offering to Yahweh, and Cohen, that spatter blood, the pieces, because remember it's piece in plural, to he will be. Remember that idiom. Because even when you have an idiomatic language where everything is said idiomatically, you got to know, if you have a language like that, it is going to be stuffed full of idioms, right? Idioms within the idiomatic phraseology. They do the same thing when they're doing a remez. Remez is when you're hinting back to something. I'm going to say, there is none good. And every one of you just thought, no, not one, right? Because you know how the thing ends. And I remezed back to it, if you will. Even in a remez, there often will remez from where they are, from what they're talking about, over to a verse from the Hebrew Bible, and then from that remez, they'll remez to another verse, and then from there they'll remez to another. It's unreal. with an idiomatic language, they very, very, very much play with things like this. One of the major reasons why the New Testament is not understood by the Western world, because they did this. Kepa's story on this is that which was spoken of the prophet Yoel, the Navi Yoel. Yeah, he did exactly that. He was bouncing from one to another, and just bringing, going down and coming all the way back and announcing to everybody that the scattered tribes of Yisrael were standing right in front of him that day, because God had already brought the scattered tribes back. But if you don't understand biblical Hebrew, if you don't understand the stacking of remez on top of remez, and the adding to all of that idioms within the idiomatic sentence, you're never going to get it, right? Thus, the reason why I've spent all this time translating all that stuff, so that people can get an idea of what's being said. Anyway, so when hikariv or hikriv, as I said earlier, and that's to approach. So this is what it is, the bringing it something to the place of the sacrifice. Mimanu. So if he brings from us, very literally, echad, one. If he's bringing from all of this, one, the word one, michol, from all karban, which is offering. So of all of the offerings, if he's bringing one of these offerings from all of the offerings that he could bring, does that make sense, Donna? Okay. Then it says teruma. That's a word for offering. It sounds like something else, doesn't it? Terua. This is teruma. So it's a different word. It's the oblation. It's an offering. It's a gift. Something that was brought to the temple and to the priests. Heave offering. That's where they get this word heave. And what's the heave offering? It's the offering that's lifted up and waved in this direction, and then this one, and then that one, and the other. There, I'm not going to spin around for you. I think I'll hit my knees and hurt myself. But anyway, this is where we get the word for heave offering. It's lifted up, and it says La Yahweh. They're lifting it. Then it says La Cohen. That'd be the lifter. But it's very specific, because it goes on and says La Cohen Hazo Rech, the one who did this, the spattering, the one, in other words, the one who is actually officiating whatever this offering is. Of all the offerings that are out there, whatever this one is the one who is doing the spattering of that blood. And this is et dam, the blood, ramim, the blood of the peace sacrifice. Lo, or it's to him, it's a sound alike. Yeah, it will be. To him it will be. Remember that? It's the idiom. So our translation, and from among all the offerings offered to Yahweh, one is for the Cohen who spatters the blood. No, I got the word one in the wrong place. That peace offering is his. That peace offering is his. It looks like I left the whole first part of this out. Let me go back and look and see if I did this wrong. I don't want to lead you guys into terrible things. That's interesting. Our literal translation, the very, very literal one, is and bring from us one from all offering to Yahweh, the Cohen that spatters. The blood will be his. Oh, so basically it's saying the one from among all of the offerings that are offered, the one that will belong to the Cohen. The one offering that belongs to the Kohen is the peace offering. So he's going to get whatever that peace offering was, along with the bread and all that kind of stuff. That all of that goes to the Kohen, is what is being said here. So of the word one is for the Kohen. Verses 31 and 34 tells us that the breast and the shoulder of the sacrifice is also added to one of the 4 loaves. We also know that the rest of the loaves are eaten by the person who brings the sacrifice. So it's a summation, if you will, of 34. It's the bringing all of that together. That the breast and the shoulder of that sacrifice, along with all of this bread, all of that belongs to the officiating priest, the one who does all of that stuff. Are we clear now, I hope? All right, Kyle and Deluge in verses 15 through 18, which is where we're going, I guess. Let me make sure of that. Yeah, that's what we're doing. Ooh, they said a lot. Must have felt important at the time. So they said the flesh of the praise offering was to be eaten on. Oh, that's what separates them. One is to be eaten on the day of, like the Passover. It can't. The other one can. So they're saying the flesh of the praise offering was to be eaten on the day of the presentation, and none of it was to be left till the next morning. And we get that from chapter 22, verses 29 through 30. They went on, but that of the vow and free will offerings might be eaten on both the first and second days. Whatever remained after that was to be burnt on the third day, in other words, to be destroyed by burning. If any was eaten on the third day, it was not well pleasing. It was not a good pleasure, razeh. And that comes from chapter 1, verse 4. It was not. None of that's important. Now they want you to compare the Talmudic word pigel. So we have altogether fotidum reder. Well, anyway, it's saying that if you eat after the time that you're supposed to eat, you bear the sin of doing that. Because if God tells you not to leave anything till the third day and you're eating it on the third day, obviously you have just trespassed God's law. That's a long way to go to say all that stuff. I'm going to skip on past to know why it seems so important at the time. Anyway, I've got to find a different book to help me out with this. Casuto died before he finished the other stuff, and I loved his work, and I leaned on it heavily, and I lost him, and I had to go find somebody else whose stuff was where there wasn't a copyright issue.
Scroll back up, and it says that they not eat, go back further. Oh, it on the third day it becomes putrefy or becomes offensive on the third. There was something about the poor. Go back up again. Go back up more. Go back.
Are you just going to take over the class or what? Do you know how much time has passed?
Offer to invite the poor to share the meal, but to guard against the danger of desecration of the meal. That's why, because after the secret, and you can't have something unholy.
This guy's trying to make stuff up that didn't know what they were talking about. Let's move on to 15. Very literally, it would say, and flesh sacrifice, thanks, peace his, in day offering he ate not he rest from us to morning. So this is where he's going to tell you you can't let it go past. You have to burn it before the morning, like on Pesach. It says u vesar, and the flesh. And that's just the flesh of this animal, right? You've sacrificed it, you've killed it. Now you've cut it up. Now you've cooked it. Zevach, that's the killing part of it. So what did we start off with? Oh, and the flesh that has been cut up, the zevach, todat for the thank offering, shelamaiv, that's his piece. God, it almost sounds like he's calling the thank offering a peace offering. It's one or the other. It's saying whether it's this one or it's that one. Beyom, so in the day, Carbano, in the day that this offering was made, Ye'achel, he will eat it. He will eat it that day. Yeah, I don't need to say anything on that. Then we have lo, which is not Yaniach. That's he rests. So not he rest. It's to rest, to sit down, to. Is that part of the? Yeah, that's a different word. It's not. It's not a. It's not like a Sabbath rest. He'll cease. He'll stop, which is also the meaning behind Sabbath, if you think about it. Mimanu, he'll rest from it. Ad, which is of time until Boker. All right, so you don't rest until. So the translation, and the flesh sacrificed, the thank offering I have for his peace. That's just not right. Now I've got two of them becoming one, and I'm sorry, I'm going to have to back up and look at this. That does not bode well in my mind. Oh, I see. The peace offering is, it'd have to be not talking about it. So you got the sacrifice, they're calling it the thank offering. And then it says, for his peace. And remember, these sacrifices, they often did this after they'd been on a perilous journey or some horrible thing had happened in life. And now that it's over, they make this thank offering. And this thank offering is they're thankful for the peace that has come into their life. It's not a peace offering that you give because you've committed sin. It's the peace that comes and after having an experience. I'm really having trouble finding words. Uh, let's just call it a profound experience of some sort, and the peace that comes after it's all said and done, and you just want to thank God that it's over, right? So the peace is not the same thing as the peace offering here, though it's. Boy, I was having trouble wrapping my head around that because we've been talking about both offerings, and now all of a sudden we're not talking that way anymore. So let's make sure we understand it. And the flesh sacrificed, the thank offering. Uh, why do I have four? That doesn't make any sense. I'm sorry. I want to get this right. Where's the Hebrew? He's giving thanks for his peace. That is literally what it says. He's giving thanks for his peace. So in the flesh sacrifice, the thank offering, I'm going to say because of his peace. He's giving a thank offering because he now has peace. In the day it was offered, the thank offering, he, speaking of the Cohen, will eat. None of it from among us will remain to the morning. None of it. So it doesn't matter who's making this type of an offering or what priest is officiating this. None of that's going to be left until the morning. It's real important that you make very clear what sacrifice you're making when you go to do something like that, obviously, because you don't want everybody, being guilty of sin because you forgot to say, "Oh yeah, it's a thank offering," and they thought it was some other sort of offering that they could eat 2 or 3 days later, if you know what I'm saying. Okay, we should probably have enough for one more. In verse 16, very literally, or willing her sacrifice offering he in day that approach he sacrifice he ate, and from tomorrow and the remainder from us he ate. Okay, so ve'im, so and if neder, if it's a vow, if this is and then it says o, the Hebrew word o, which is the equivalent of our English word or. So if it's a vow or nedava, a free will offering. So whether if it's a offering that you're making with a vow, VOW, not a vowel, but a vow, or it's a free will offering because it says zevach next, or a free will sacrifice carbano offering. I'm not sure why they use both words. It's not necessary. Bayom, in that day, ha ke rivu, in the day that it was that sacrifice was brought, zivcho ye'achel, will be eaten. He will eat in that day. Umi macharat, and from tomorrow vehanotar, and the menu from us, ya'achel, he ate or eat. So what did it say? Pretty simple. And if his sacrifice is a vow or a free will offering, he may eat the sacrifice in the day that he brought it, and he may eat the remainder on the next day. So the first one was the Thanksgiving offering for your peace. You cannot eat this sacrifice, whether it's a vow or a free will sacrifice. Those two that can be eaten on the first and the second day. Now the Onkelos by Drazina Wagner wrote, even Ezra and Haskuni clarified that the vow is generally prompted by worry in a time of stress, while a free will offering emanates from a spirit of giving. The free will offering is different than the Todah for the thank offering. It's connected with a dangerous event from which the person is thankful to have been saved, from which they have been saved. And to that I say, really, why can't a person just that what they're doing here is, but it just almost everybody does this. Somebody writes something, somebody from the dark ages writes something, and all of a sudden the explanation that they're giving is the one that Moshe gave. No, it's not. The reasoning that they're giving is somehow the reason Moshe did it. No, we cannot shove stuff that was This may be certainly the way things were done during the time of Haskuni and maybe even Ezra. But that does not mean that that's the reason why these things were done during the time of Moshe or why we should do it today. If God doesn't tell us why they did this, then we don't know. If he doesn't tell us why we should do it, then we don't know. And we should be okay with that. We should be okay with not knowing things. If it's not there, it's not so important that we have to know it. And so to feel obligated, which these guys obviously did, they felt obligated to comment on everything. And in the lack of having something to say, they're essentially making stuff up. And that bugs me. That bugs me to no end. It's bad form. If there's no explanation given, don't give one. You know what I'm saying? All right. I think we can get one more in. Let's squeeze one more in. Verse 17. And the remainder from flesh, the sacrifice in day the third with fire and burn. Oh, that's interesting. The hanotar. And the remainder, the redundancy, the stuff that's left over. You've eaten it the second day, and that which is left over, mi besar, from the flesh that's left over, hazavat, from that sacrifice, bayom, in the day, ha shelishi, that's 3. In the third day, baesh, with fire. With fire. Yisaref, and burn. Sounds like you're going to burn it on the third day. And the flesh of the sacrifice of the thanksgiving for his peace on the day he offered and ate it will not remain among us till the third day. So you can eat it the first day, you can eat the second day, but it will not be available on the third day. So that night, sometime before the sun comes up, it has to be burned off, just like in the Pesach. Of course, in the Pesach, it's the first night. This is the second night. So you're not eating in the third day. You're making sure it's not there on the third day. Well, this next one's too big. There's no way we can get through it in 6 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and call it a day here, and we will pick up with verse 18 next week. Shalom, shalom, y'all.